What's up YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to be speaking about some synastry aspects that tend to go a little bit more under the radar or are underrated when it comes to synastry aspects that can be great for things like deep love and devotion between people in a relationship. Synastry aspect indicators for this would be aspects like Venus making an aspect to Mars or the moon making an aspect to Pluto, but these are some of the more underrated synastry aspects that can be just as powerful, especially for things like long-term commitments and even for a powerful connection between people that people can tend to kind of overlook. So for the first one, when it comes to having your moon in your partner's 4th house, this tends to signal having a deep emotional bond with someone. And when it comes to that deep emotional bond, it tends to be one that does last. When having someone's moon in your 4th house, this does, especially for the moon person, feel like a sense of coming home. So there is a sense of also feeling this as a sense of emotional security. Especially for the moon person, they feel the sense of coming home to the house person. So when it comes to having this overlay with someone in your synastry, this does feel like a sense of having that devotion, that deep love with someone. And this could be one of the most emotionally secure type of placements to share with someone as well. And when it comes to having this with someone in your synastry, it doesn't always have to feel like that feeling of fireworks at first, but it does contribute to being able to have the kind of connection that feels like it's developing into having this deep bond with someone. So because of that sense of it kind of unfolding in a more subtle way, it can go under the radar when it comes to synastry aspects that is quite great for showing deep love, devotion between people in a relationship. And the person who's the house person with this aspect is going to feel this sense of emotional comfort. It's going to make it feel a lot easier to be able to open up to the moon person when it comes to having this synastry with them. You're going to open up about things that could be quite personal or even related to their childhood, but there's that sense of feeling comfortable enough to open up with the moon person for the house person here. And when it comes to the moon person, they also have the sense of wanting to be able to protect that house person, or they're going to want to be able to nurture their connection with them because of this aspect. They actually want to create the sense of a safe emotional space for the two of them in this relationship with this aspect. And over time, both the moon person and the house person pretty much begin to see each other as a long-term partner, wanting to be able to build a home together as well. In their relationship, they can even feel this feeling of familiarity with each other, this feeling of comfort, and because of that, it can feel quite safe. It can also feel very fulfilling emotionally with each other. Even in spite of any challenges that may come up within their relationship for any reason, they may tend to come back to each other because of this feeling of comfort and because of this feeling of their emotional bond being one that's quite deep. And it's not in a way that can feel very overwhelming or dramatic between the two of them, but there is something within this connection that makes it feel very safe, very familiar, one that also bonds two people together in a very deep way, especially if the other aspects within their synastry to each other support this. It tends to feel like home for both of them. And another one is having your partner's Venus in your 6th house. When it comes to having your partner's Venus falling into your 6th house, this can be a great sign of being able to experience that feeling of devotion within a relationship between two people. But when it comes to the 6th house, it's not as flashy, so it can actually be overlooked and it can tend to go under the radar. When it comes to this placement, it can be overlooked for that reason. But when it comes to having Venus falling into the 6th house, this can feel a lot like having the love language of acts of service from someone. Because when it comes to having Venus falling into the 6th house, this can be acts of devotion being shown in the way that love is expressed through care and also through acts of service for someone, and even acts of devotion. Here especially, the Venus person really wants to be able to support the house person. And it might not be in the form of those grand romantic gestures, but it is in small ways or small acts, such as being able to bring somebody a cup of coffee every morning, or being able to organize someone's workspace, and even being able to encourage someone to maintain healthy habits in their life. But there is a sense of the Venus person wanting to show up for the house person in small everyday actions. And it's in a way that the sixth house person can really come to appreciate that Venus person and begin to see them in a light where they see them as somebody who's a stable force in their life. And they begin to associate them with stability, and with things like seeing them as with a sense of support and even a sense of well-being. And between the sixth house person and the Venus person, it's like they're going to be there for each other. And when it comes to them being able to be there for each other, they build something that's reliable between each other. And the love can especially be expressed through more practical ways, but they also have the sense of experiencing it growing through everyday life, which can in turn make for a very strong foundation between two people in a relationship. Especially if the other aspects within their synastry between each other supports it. It's not overly passionate or dramatic, but it is grounds for a very strong foundation for something to grow. And in a lot of cases, the sixth house person may even start to feel that life feels smoother, it feels easier, it feels even more enjoyable because the Venus person is there in their life. And they may really come to appreciate that, and also be quite motivated by the presence of the Venus person in their lives. For instance, now they feel more motivated to take care of themselves, as well as to be able to commit to improving their routines because of the influence of the Venus person in their life. And another one that is maybe not that much overlooked, but can be overlooked because times it can feel a bit heavy, when having your Saturn in your partner's 7th house. Because when it comes to having this with someone, it can be a sign of commitment and a great sign of responsibility within a relationship between two people that leads to a long-lasting kind of commitment for them and for their partnership. And the way that having this aspect can tend to actually test a relationship between two people is because the Saturn person here does take relationships quite seriously and is going to take the relationship with the 7th house person quite seriously, maybe even too seriously, as when it comes to how the 7th house person is perceiving that Saturn person. At times it can feel like they are pushing that 7th house person to think long term and even to take on the responsibilities within a relationship in a way that's going to allow for this relationship to be one that works out to be able to last. The Saturn person here can even come across as if they are almost pressuring the 7th house person, or the 7th house person may feel that pressure from the Saturn person. Even at times they may feel that the Saturn person kind of restricts them. And when it comes to their relationship with this overlay between the two of them, the Saturn person here may have high expectations of their relationship with the 7th house person. But over time, when it comes to having this aspect between two people, they especially can come to find that there's a sense of being able to have stability within this connection, and deep stability when it comes to what they have with each other. The Saturn person is someone that the 7th house person can rely on, and the 7th house person may come to appreciate that about the Saturn person, because they come to find that they can truly depend on that Saturn person not to run away whenever the going gets tough. And when it comes to having this aspect, it can be a great foundation for being able to have a long-term or long-lasting bond with somebody. But it will depend quite heavily on that 7th house person, whether they are ready to be able to have that level of structure with a person or in a commitment with the Saturn person. Because at times for the 7th house person, a lot of that heaviness can really be placed upon them, where they can actually feel the Saturn person as being being controlling or being too demanding of them. But if they are both willing and both on the same page with the idea of being able to grow their connection together, they both have a lot of potential for being able to have a connection or a relationship that is going to withstand the test of time and is going to be a long-lasting bond between them. And another aspect is when having your Pluto falling into your partner's first house. So when it comes to having Pluto in your partner's first house, when it comes to the synastry, typically Pluto can have a lot to do with feelings like obsession and being overly consumed. But with the Pluto falling into the first house, it's not always going to be about obsession between two people, but they do have the potential of having a transformative connection with each other that can be quite hard to ignore. When it comes to the impact that the Pluto person's making on the first house person, they especially are going to experience that sense of transformation on a deep level from the impact of the Pluto person in their life because of having their Pluto in their first house. And since the first house is the house all about what you give off, especially outwardly when it comes to personality, when it comes to Pluto's influence on the first house person here, it is going to especially be reflective of that sense of a feeling of experiencing that death and rebirth type of an energy, in the sense that the first house person is going to experience a lot of changes, and the Pluto person's impact on the first house person's life is going to make a mark. And between the first house person and the Pluto person, they can have a great deal of devotion towards each other. But for the first house person, it could be a deeper sense of devotion, while for the Pluto person, it could be a more outwardly expressed sense of devotion. But with this synastry between the two of them, when it comes to things like their loyalty and even their commitment, it can go quite deep when it comes to having Pluto in your partner's first house. And that's why when it comes to having an aspect like having the partner's Pluto in your first house, the relationship does have a lot of potential to be able to evolve into something very powerful between the two of them. Also, when it comes to having an aspect like having your North Node trining or in a conjunction with your partner's Sun, this can be a pretty strong and huge aspect to share with someone in a relationship, but it can tend to get overlooked. When it comes to the North Node, this is representative of things like our destiny, our soul growth. And when it comes to the Sun, this is our core self, this is our core identity, this is our sense of being. So when having the North Node touching the Sun in this way, it can actually be representative of feeling seen, feeling like the North Node person specifically here recognizes the Sun person on a level that feels like it is a soul level, and vice versa. And for this reason, this can actually make things feel like they are meant to be between the North Node person and the Sun person, even though the synastry aspect doesn't have to mean that it's always going to be easy. It's definitely going to make things feel very meaningful between the two of them, and even transformative, because between the North Node person and the Sun person here, they feel the sense that they are meant to learn from each other and be able to grow and learn together within this lifetime. And even an aspect like having Mars in a harmonious aspect with Saturn, because with this aspect, attraction doesn't fade between the Mars person and the Saturn person, and they both can be willing to put in the effort to be able to make things work out between the two of them. And they also have this nice blend between things like passion and things like endurance. And overall, it does create this feeling of being in it together within a relationship between two people. Because it is a harmonious aspect, like a trine or a sextile, this can especially make it so that they have discipline, reliability in their relationship with each other, along with things like passion between them. And with these soft aspects, it doesn't feel so much like a challenge. Well, that does it for this video on some synastry aspects that may be underrated when it comes to synastry aspects that can point to showing deep love between two people and even devotion between two people. Thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it and that you found it helpful. And if you did, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to the channel for more videos. Well, that is where I love and leave you. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye guys.